Welcome to Political Paradigm from Channels Television Studios in Abuja. I am Terry Ikumi. The Independent National Electoral Commission conducted by-elections in 16 federal constituencies, state constituencies and senatorial districts across 12 states of the Federation on Saturday, the 16th of August 2025. The elections were held to replace lawmakers who died or resigned after the 2023 general elections. What we know is that the ruling All Progressives Congress won 12 out of the 16 by-election seats. But several reactions have trailed the elections, most of them political. However, our focus on Political Paradigm today would be the election process, observations and lessons to learn for improving our elections. Some are already tired of having to speak about lessons to learn from every election cycle because we expect improvements. Well, let's see how far we've come with our elections, especially considering that this by-election is not a major election, so many would have expected that it would be sort of a litmus test ahead of the 2027 general election. My guest is the Executive Director of Kimpact Development Initiative, KDI. It is a non-profit, non-partisan, non-governmental organization that advances good governance, democratic rights, public policy, and public engagement. What we also know is that KDI has worked hand in hand with local and international bodies to promote peaceful elections and active citizen engagement in democratic processes and reforms. Mr. Bukola Idowu, the Executive Director of KDI, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I wonder how good it is for you to be here, considering the stories we'll hear from this by-election, which just held. But you followed the process. It is your mandates to monitor elections and follow the process, and you've also been working towards improving Nigerian elections. So talk to us about what your observations are from the by-elections which held on Saturday.
Yeah, so it's happened on Saturday, and one of the things we've seen is that there is nothing new from what we have seen in the past. As a matter of fact, I can categorically say no improvement in every aspect, and that is just the sad story about that by-election. And one of the things we have also done, and to see what we are up against. And before I appear here, one of the things I did was to pick both local, domestic and international observers reports from 2015, and I checked them through and then look at what we had on Saturday election. I tell you, no difference. What both domestic and international observers have been complaining on from 2015 is still the same thing. It's still the same thing, and that is worrying. For instance, on Saturday, that the by-election, we saw, and I put it in like about components now. Number one component is we saw late arrival of materials in various places, logistical challenges in various places, and you thought that that is something we should have just, for instance, by-election, you just think we should have just gone against that. Over that. It's still there. And then we also saw electoral violence. You see violence Kogi recorded the highest from our count, and then you saw that in Anambra, you saw that in Kano, you saw that in even in Edo. The only place that we couldn't record any issue of electoral violence is just Oyo State. You know that in that election. You saw that also in Ogun State. And then again, you also saw the issue around the issue around intimidation and harassment. We saw people, for instance, in Kano, where some group of boys, young boys, and a whole lot of them were on pickup and moving around with a lot of, with gun, with sticks, and then intimidating people, harassing people not to come and vote. That's delayed voting in that particular day. You also saw in Enugu, where INEC even set up, and then election did not hold. Till 3 o'clock, election did not hold. We saw places where election started 10 o'clock. Exercise that should start 8:30, 10 o'clock. Then we saw gunshots in Kogi. So, and I tell you now, after, and if you look at 2023 election, that is the 7th general election. 2023 election, that is the 7th general election since we returned to democracy. And that tells you, so we went through 7 electoral cycles since we returned to democracy in 1999. Seventh. And now we are talking about 2025. We are still talking about the same issue. The only good thing I can actually say is that the beavers work well, though in Edo State, it was a bit slow, in accrediting the people. But the rest of the thing is still the same thing we have been facing over and over and over again. As I'm talking to you now, you look at the election, it's just a small election, and as I'm talking to you, not all the results are on IReV. So that's also cause for concern. Just 12 states, and not the entire state, just 11 constituencies. And then you still have election results still not on IReV. So these are the issues that
That's a lot. That's a lot you've just said, and it's really worrying.
Very worrying.
If from 2015 till now we cannot record improvements, tangible improvements, so to speak, I think it's worrying. But we must address this thing accordingly. Take it one after the other to find out where the errors. Where we haven't seen the report from INEC yet, and the sad thing is that it takes quite a while before the Electoral Commission releases reports on its elections. But the good thing is we do have civil society organizations who would give reports in good time. We expect yours as soon as possible. Well, let's take it one after the other now. Let's begin with the aspect of logistics. Sadly, we still have logistics problem in this country. Sure. From your assessment, what exactly were logistics problems that we faced, and what exactly caused them?
So, I put it in three ways, three components. One, on this issue of logistics. Number one is you have to look at the institution that is responsible for that logistic. And in this case, for INEC in the election, they pitched their tent with NURTW and then Union of Road Transport Workers. So there are two institutions, transport institutions that INEC believe should be able to handle this logistic for them. That is one, the institution. Number two, you also have to look at the instrument the institution are even using for this logistic. Of course, they told them that, look, you have to get all the best vehicle to move this thing. Then you also now look at in terms of administration for that logistic, in terms of finances. Yeah. You have to pay these people to get it to get the sensitive material from point A to point B to all the polling units. So when you now look at that, you also now look at the role of the security agency. So when we talk about logistics, I already mentioned to you just right here now that about 3 institutions are involved in that logistics. So INEC is involved, NURTW is involved, the security agency is involved.
So let's look at it from the part of INEC, because one of the things we heard was that INEC has been experiencing some funding challenges. This election was supposed to have held sometime last year, and I think February as well, and then up till this time. So the funding challenge could have been responsible for the logistic problem, isn't it?
So I don't believe that the funding challenge is responsible. However, this is it. This election was supposed to be held maybe sometimes last year, but INEC, due to funding, I agree from that perspective, now decided to pull everything together. Now, it is assumed that by the time they are having this election on Saturday, they already have the fund. So if they don't have the fund, and because they don't have the fund, that is why they couldn't do this election August last year. It's because they don't have the fund, they couldn't conduct the election December last year. So it's assumed now that you have the fund, and then you are able to go ahead. So funding should not be an issue when it comes to these. And of course, don't also forget that when it comes to budget for election, this is, according to the Electoral Act, this is supposed to be released probably 1 year ahead for their planning. So, and that is where the challenge is. Do they get their money? Why are they not speaking out? Now, why is it that, and again, we also have to investigate. By you not getting the fund to use as at the time when you're supposed to use the money, could that also be an instrument of sabotage of the entire process? And I think one of the things we need to sit down and have a frank conversation. Why we bash INEC? Fine. There are other institutions responsible. And one of the things people need to also understand is that even if INEC is ready, 5 a.m., they are ready. The ad hoc staff they are going to use, they are ready. Now, the materials they are going to use, ready. And the NURTW that will move are ready. But do you even know if the security agencies are not in place? The police are not in place, or if the police are not ready, they cannot do anything. So you now find out that it's like a web.
For these elections, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nowhere where the elections held in a riverine area where they had to go through water.
No.
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
And there are no records of bad roads or areas, unreachable areas, difficult to reach areas.
So there are. But, and this is what I'm saying. For instance, when you look at the Anambra, it's like a whole senatorial district. And don't forget, senatorial district is a combination of local governments. So you have that there. Now, even in Edo State, you have that there. But the issue here is this. This is an election that is not like a statewide election. It's just a constituency election. So all resources should have been mobilized. Then if you are not talking about, okay, so there is nothing even stopping INEC from creating, an ad hoc rack center that is closer to that place, because as of this time, this is just like standing in an election and then you get it.
Let me come in here, because when you talk about logistics, you already broke it down. So let's be sure where the problem could have emanated from. One, do you have the reports that all the materials were on ground and ready to be dispersed at the time when they were supposed to be?
So the materials were on ground. So and it varies from state to state. For instance, in some states, the materials were on ground. Then you have transport issue.
So the transport company, so the NURTW did not fulfill its obligation.
Not show up, or in some instances, they are not ready to move. That is one, because until they get their money. And this money, and I thank INEC for that. I think INEC should be commended because they decentralize the giving of the money. So the money is not given straight from Abuja. Of course, it's at that state level. That is one. Then in some states, it's because they are waiting for the security agencies to accompany them. So, and if they are not around on time, they will not be able to move. We have seen situation in this country that the security agency, they first of all had their parade before they go on feed. So on the feed. So these are a whole lot of web around particular issue. And in some instances, the security agency will tell you, look, we need to move, but the coast is not clear. Let's wait a bit until they are able to clear the. So you have a lot of impediment. But like I am saying, you see, for instance, when you look at off-cycle election, governorship election, you find out that a lot of heavy deployment are made. And in fact, you see in a particular state, you can see like about 3 national commissioners, you can see about 4 or 5 recs coming to that state to assist. I don't see why we don't have that in this election. So that to have that done. Though there are deployments, from the national to assist. But of course, if you look at the reports that happened in Ogun State, where INEC official was reportedly apprehended with 2.5 million, just to use to, it was an allegation that, okay, they want to use it to, truncate the process of the election. That INEC official that was being paraded is not from Ogun State, it's from the headquarters here in Abuja. So that tells you that there are also other deployments. But how sincere are we? Now, if that accusation is true, of that particular INEC official that was paraded, now, what did he want to do? He doesn't have the power to change the result. That is number one. You can't also stop what the people are going to vote. And now, what are the low-hanging fruits that they do? Now, you can affect logistics, delay the materials. And that is, when this is done deliberately, people wait, and then you disenfranchise some people to go away. And in some instances, for instance, when you look at the 2023 election, off-cycle election in Kogi, for instance, to be precise, Ogori Magongo, where results arrived pre-feed. Election have not taken place, results has already been written. So how do you know how many people that come and who is going to vote for what? Result has already been pre-feed. So these are some of the anomalies that also come with logistics. So, and if we want to get this logistic right, we must sit down. The institution involved must have frank conversation with
Let me ask you a direct question as a CSO who's monitored elections. Do you think that the Independent National Electoral Commission should continue to utilize the services of the NURTW, or do you think we should get an alternative, and what could that alternative be?
Number one, so I think I will pick it from three angles. Number one, you know, if you ask me this question like about before 2023 election, I will tell you, and my position has always been, you don't need the NURTW. Because the NURTW in some states, they are seen to be partisan, loyal to a particular political party. However, recent revelation has shown at our engagement, because at some point we engaged with the NURTW, and they have to say it openly, even on the national TV, to say, look, the problem has not always been from us. If there is any sabotage, ask INEC. And INEC has not responded to that till date. Till date. So what I am saying now is that the fault alone is not only on the NURTW. However, instead of putting the entire burden, you see what INEC is doing is this, the entire burden of electoral process that has been put on INEC. And you know, we have been talking about onboarding INEC now. Yeah. So the entire process that has been put on INEC is also shifting the entire logistic burden on these people, because there can be, you can diversify. For instance now, there can be private companies, you know, and private logistic company in this country. Because, and I keep wondering, why is it that you are not using the private logistic company? Because some of them are equally very effective, and then you can just segment. So for instance, if let's look at if you want to do Lagos, for instance, why is it that, look, okay, this logistic company, can you just handle this senatorial district? All your resources deploy to the senatorial district. If you want to use the NURTW, give them this particular region, and then get another one to this particular region, and then you diversify. But to now say, look, you want to use a single institution, at times they can be overwhelmed, at times anything can happen. These are people with various affiliations. Sure. And we have said this before, and they say, no, you can't allow that kind of sensitive thing to go into the private enterprise. I said, look, what's NURTW, is it government? It's not government. And then who prints our ballot paper? Is it government or private institution? When you go out of the country to print the ballot paper, as we do that before, is it not a private company that prints it for you, or is the government of China or the government of South Africa that prints it? No. So if you have to be sincere, diversify, sign MOU with them, and the people you are going to use in the north can be totally different from the people you use in the south. You know, the people you are going to use in the southeast can be different from the people you use in the north central. So just look for what works in each of the region. You see, INEC is still conducting an election as if they are doing federalism. This, our federalism, as if everybody go to the center to collect allocation, is still the same way they do conduct election. You see, election is something that you don't control 100% from the center. 2024, last year, I was in US to observe their election. There is no central, body that manages the election. In fact, their central body, the only thing they manage is just campaign finance. How the political party get their money and how they fund their campaign. That is what they finance. Now, the state of, DC handle his election locally. And that is why results have been declared at the state level. And you cannot say, oh, this man, Trump has won in DC, and this one has won in New York, and then you pull everything together. So because the state should be able, and we should look at that here, because you can't sit here in Abuja and then you control what goes on in one senatorial district in Anambra. And that is one of the things we need to do. So we have to diversify. We have to bring in more actors into that logistic to handle it.
Very well then. This election, as small as it was, huge violence cases were recorded across different senatorial districts, different constituencies. And we even hear, you say Kogi had the highest, and we hear that in Kano State over 100 people were already apprehended. Yeah. So it raises the question, did you observe the presence of security agencies at polling units?
Yes, we do. We did observe that, and that is one good thing. But that is not, You see, so let's put it this way, and I mean for like about 10 years now, we have stayed on this issue of election security. Let's put it. See, the securing territorial, the territory at which election is going to take place is one area. So, and that is what the military have been doing. So the military stay at the border of the state. Now, then securing the internal territory at which election is going to take place, that rests on the police, in this election. Then again, securing the polling unit is another thing. So, and that rests on the police or any other agency that will be deployed. That is why when you get into the polling unit, you will see civil defense, you can see custom, you can see even the prison officials there at the polling unit. However, so you need to now ask yourself, where, and we have done this, we have tabulated that, where does election violence take place? One, internal, not at the border, so, and which means the military are doing their job, so not at the border, but you now look at the state wide. So it happened there, despite the fact that no vehicular movement. Now, then the polling unit, it happened there. That is where they can cut away ballot box.
Which should be the priority.
Which should be the priority. Yes. However, don't forget, this is where I'm driving at. At the polling unit, the security agency at the polling unit are not allowed to carry gun. So they can't carry any arms at that particular. Understandable, because you have crowd there. So most times, those people at the polling unit are being overwhelmed because they are helpless. They can't carry any arms. They can't do anything. So they are just there. In fact, in some instances, they just assist in just, queue, just assist in the queue management. Yeah, so in terms of the presence, pulling off violence, you can't find that. The other thing, quickly, I want to mention is that, look, the people at the security agency on election day, and that is where we need to amend our electoral act. People doesn't know this, and let me tell you today. Our electoral act says, or the guideline says, the police on election day, or even if it's the military at the polling unit on election day, cannot do anything until the presiding officer give the order. So, you see, if vote buying is going on here, or if somebody is harassing or intimidating a voter, or is trying to disrupt the process, the police will be looking until the presiding officer say, please arrest this man. So if the presiding officer is a copper, is the one in charge, is the one that will give the police.
So this argument has always come up. And there are those who have clearly stated that we have other laws like the penal code. Bribery is an offense in this country. So the police at that level will not see vote buying as bribery or as an offense, harassment, intimidation as an offense that they can step in until they are told to, because the regulations, the guidelines say so.
So it's a vote buying on the election day. Most times, most things that happen within the 300-meter peripheral of the polling unit is guided by a separate law. And that is what we need to know. So, for instance, if money is exchanging at the polling unit, it's either it's vote buying, but out there you can call it bribery, but that is vote buying. And that is why election violence is different from normal violence. Because you can't say, how do you categorize that? And that is why they pull everything there, that when you see electoral offense, there are things we call electoral offense. And I am staying with electoral offense. So you don't say, so far it's not an electoral offense. And there are ways to categorize electoral offense. It's there in the Electoral Act. So what I am saying is that when the presiding officer see electoral offense, not just any offense, then you have to tell the security agency to act. But think about it. The man is busy with the election, managing the queue, overseeing the accreditation and the process. Is still the same person that will be looking at offender and will be giving the security agency instruction to arrest. I think we have to detach that and now expand it to this argument that people are saying that these are offense. Bribery is bribery. So the moment you detach it, that the police can act without the instruction of the presiding officer, then we are likely going to get there.
So for this election, these elections that held, is it safe to say that adequate security was not deployed?
I think it's safe to say that. Because if adequate security was deployed, we won't see this magnitude of violence. And let me tell you, now in Kano, the guys that were moving, we saw the video, our observers in Kano, we deployed observer there, they sent the video to us, we saw it, we escalated it. These guys were moving in open pickup. And they were with guns, gun, and then stick, intimidating people for 45 minutes. Where are the security agencies?
So are we now going to say that we should amend the Electoral Act to allow armed security at polling units?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
But how
we
do
don't need
armed
it.
security confront armed thugs?
So how did they get to the polling unit? That is the issue. So how did they get to that 300 meter around the polling unit? That is it. So because within the polling unit, 300 meters don't carry arms. You have crowd there. You have children, you have women, you have, civilians there. So you don't need harm in the midst of these people. I agree. But if we have been doing our job before getting to the polling unit, then, the whole process will be good. So think about it. People are coming from a place to come and cut away the ballot box. How did they get there? It is not the people that queue that suddenly pick the box and run away. So that means they pass checkpoints, they pass a lot of places to get to that place and carry the ballot box and move away and stuff it and bring it back. So these are the issues. So what is the solution? Now, the people that are allowed to carry arms should do their job, should do their arrest, should nip things at the bud before they get to the place. Then the last thing, because this issue, this monster of vote buying, most of these electoral offense will not go. Vote buying, election violence will not go until we are sincere about prosecuting electoral offenders. I give you data. In 2023 election, over 1,556 electoral offenders were arrested. 1,556. Now, and this is from the military, from the police, EFCC, ICPC, civil defense. Pull everything together, 1,556. Today, the only person that we can say successfully prosecuted and got sentenced is the professor, I think from Akwa Ibom. So we are the rest. So when we don't have enough conviction, not even conviction, but when people are not paying for the deed they committed, then other people are bolding to get this thing done. And most times we also look at some of these arrests, we just laugh. See, the people you are arresting are just the implementer. Somebody is giving the instruction, somebody finance it. You see, because we conducted a research some time ago, we find that out of like about 300 violence that happened, 300 election violence that happened on election day. And this was what we did like about 6 months to 2023 general election, and we concluded the research after Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa, Osakule election in November. Now, that is for more or less like 1 year. Now, 300 election offenders. We find out that leading political party have 280 linked to them. 280. So only 20 were given to other political party. Now, one thing that data is telling us is that it takes resources to even finance election violence. So the smaller party, as it were, in quotes, it's not like they don't want to also engage in this violence.
They can't afford
it. It's because they can afford it. Because you see that people also make budget for this. They call it contingency. Budget for this. And they also have standby lawyers to defend them.
We would come to the Electoral Act amendments so that you could talk about some of the amendments that are being proposed or being considered right now by the National Assembly to know what sort of adjustments could be made. But then, let's talk about voter turnout. what's your assessment of the voter turnout? Because the reports we are getting suggest that this was quite a number of people did not even know the elections were going to be held on Saturday.
The voter turnout was poor. We don't have in any of these constituencies, we don't have up to 25% voter turnout.
You know, I've heard severally that elections at this constituency level tend to turn out more voters.
Yeah.
So what exactly went wrong now?
So don't let us isolate this by-election. I'm going to give 3 points. Now, number one, don't isolate this by-election. Let's look at data from 2015. The voter turnout has been decreasing. Up to the number you have in 2015, it decreased in 2019. Then in 2023, you have that decrease too. Now, off-cycle that came after 2023 general election, Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa, Edo, and Ondo, voter turnout decreased across board. So, what do we expect in the by-election? An increase? No. So the question is, what was responsible? Could it be that citizens are losing trust in the electoral umpire? Okay, so if they are losing trust in the electoral umpire, is it still the same electoral umpire there from 2015 till now? And then what miracle are we expecting? That they will now turn out suddenly? It's not going to happen. So number one is, do people have the trust in the electoral process? So, and that is one thing we have to do to build that trust so that the turnout can come up again. So that is number one. Number two is political party don't mobilize voters again. We were tracking the campaign. For instance, I can tell you in Kogi, hardly will you see APC campaigning in Kogi. They campaign, but not like ADC, PDP. But the question is this, and then you also see in some states, you see APC campaigning, you see the other party not campaigning. Then the question is, on the election day, you saw a lot of them coming out with money to buy voter. So one of the things we have seen now is they are reducing their money for campaign and make it transactional on the election day. So that is why, pull people down, ask them for the manifesto of political party. They don't know. So this guy, and that is why, have you seen, and let me also go and look at the data. You will find both at the presidential, even at the state level, we saw that more candidates, not that it is 100%, but more candidates who doesn't even attend debate win the election. So they did not debate with their colleagues. People did not see their program and compare it, but they are winning the election. So how is that possible? Because they have decided to make election transactional. And that is the danger of this thing. So, and you see, Nigerians need to understand. Just imagine if the recruitment process in China is monetized. Competency will not get. In fact, you will just see people that have money and just say, look, take this money, put my son there. And then, whether the son is competent or not, it has character or not, he gets the job, and then what is going to be the effect? The quality will keep reducing. And this is the situation we have found ourselves.
So now that brings us to Electoral Act amendments. I remember speaking with the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters and drew his attention to concerns around the IReV and electronic transmission of results and how it should be made mandatory. He didn't buy the idea entirely. Do you think that if we go into the next election without making electronic transmission of results mandatory, such that in court it could be presented as evidence, do you think that we would make progress in our electoral process?
We won't. We won't. We won't make any progress. And now, if that is not backed by law, if it's not in the Electoral Act, I can predict here that we are likely going to have the lowest voter turnout as we approach 2027 election. I can predict, I can tell you. So this is it. And don't forget, in Nigeria, we always have strong men against strong institutions.
Against weak institutions.
Yeah, and the weak. I mean, so, and then when you now look at probably the chairman of the electoral committee, if it's not in support, that tells you the body language. And don't forget, that's supposed to be the game changer. That's supposed to be, I mean, what people, and that is one innovation that INEC has made, that everybody, including the young people, everybody embraced. And that made a lot of people, don't forget,
almost trust the process.
Trust the process. Then in 2023, for the first time, aside 1999, that we returned, 2023 was also the first time we have highest number of first-time voters. Because they trust the process. Oh, the result is going to be on IReV. The chairman came out and explained how it's going to be on IReV. You went from your, and then, bam, it moved there. Then the team did not work on election day. And then the political party went to court. The court said, well, it's not, there is no law that says it. So people have been advocating, and we have been advocating, that, look, give this thing legislative backing. And this is what Nigeria wants. Nobody should be afraid of free, fair, and election. Why are you afraid? It is what you did at the polling unit from EC8A, snap it, transmit it. It's in the INEC guideline. Just move it in the INEC guideline, move it into the Electoral Act, give it that legislative backing. Why is it difficult? It tells you the political class don't want that.
This election that we've just had, the by-election, the results are not on the IReV, completely on the IReV. INEC introduced the IReV. CSOs have backed it, international organizations have backed it, but yet it is not still being prioritized in elections. Ordinarily, for a small election as the constituencies and central district, you would expect that it would be quick. But does this also not give credence or support the argument that we probably are not ready for electronic transmission of results if we're unable to achieve electronic transmission of results at this level?
I think the reason INEC support it, but the reason they are doing this is because there is no legal implication, whether they do it or not.
So why is INEC not transmitting all results in real time electronically?
Because there is no legal implication, whether they do it or not. Now, let's give it to them. In 2023, there were cases of cyber attack. And when you now have those kind of cases, you fortify your infrastructure. Now, the issue here is this. Transmit the results. If you transmit it, you have nothing to lose. And that is INEC. They have nothing to lose. And the reason why they are not doing it is best known to them. And then nobody can even question them because it's not backed by law. But have you seen INEC fade in those constitutional responsibility, like giving notice of election, giving, failure to use beavers? Do you know that in the law, if you don't use beavers, that result in that polling unit cannot be reckoned with, according to law? So they don't joke with that, because that is the law. The time at which continual voter registration should be done, they keep to that, according to the law. Then monitoring of the political party primaries, according to the law, they keep to that. But because there is a law backing that, they know they can be penalized for that. But this one is their initiative, and that is why it's in the guideline. So it's more or less like they are testing the water. They do it and they don't want to do it, but they want to really do it. And maybe, and I think we can't also rule out internal sabotage within INEC. And I keep saying that we can't outrightly rule that out, because at times it's so funny what we see on that IReV. We are going to release our report. It's going to be, we've saw some funny things on this by-election on that IReV. It's funny things. You will see alteration. How did he make it to the elect?
But we saw that in 2023 as well.
So because now, how many people were penalized? Don't forget, go and read the entire judgment, presidential one. The entire judgment from 36 state tribunals. We monitor it. Most of those judgments doesn't even reprimand INEC. They don't. So none of the judgments at the presidential tribunal to the Supreme Court even
holds INEC accountable.
And say, INEC, if you know you cannot do this, why did you put it in your electoral guideline? Why did you talk about it? Festus Okoye was talking about it. The INEC chairman was talking about it. It's going to be there. It's the game changer. Now, you did not do it. Is that not like a moral failure?
Should it be categorized as an electoral offense?
Yeah, exactly. Because, look, if the electoral body that is an umpire fails, or you gave a promise, you did not keep it, then they should face the penalty. But none of the judgments reprimand INEC. So that is why they are emboldened to do this again.
I think the NBA has a proposal before the National Assembly for the Electoral Act Amendment Bill for INEC to be sued directly. Because what we have these days is INEC comes in as an interested party or mentioned in a suit, but the political parties just sue themselves and leave INEC out of it.
So let me tell you the funny scenario about our electoral law, and then as it relates to the guideline, that one of the things we are advocating that should be changed. We've submitted our memorandum, and we hope they will consider it. Now, do you know that when you are going for, when a political party that is contesting an election, one of the things we discovered that happen is this. Let's assume you are party A and party B. You won the election. If I'm going to the court, do you know who I'm suing? You. You are also a candidate. I'm a candidate. Why is candidates suing themselves? They will now join INEC. No. Who conducts the election? Is it not INEC? Why can't INEC be sued directly? Why am I suing a fellow candidate? I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So you now say, look, he did not win with the majority of the lawful vote cast. Did he conduct the election? Did he count it himself? Did the political party count it himself? So at the end of the day, you sue your opponent, and then you join INEC. And the danger of joining INEC again is this. For instance, let me make it practical so that you get what I'm trying to say. In Osun, PDP won the off-cycle governorship election. When APC was going to court, APC went to court and sued PDP, Adeleke, and then joined INEC. Now, when INEC was defending, INEC was on the side of PDP because they were joined as defendants.
Defending the results.
Defending the results. So who is the second? Who is the first defendant? PDP, Adeleke. Now, come to Edo. APC won. PDP went to court. The first defender, the governor, Ekwebolo, and then APC. They also now join INEC. And do you know one funny thing? At the tribunal, INEC adopt the brief of APC. So that has made them to be very, very unstable. So depending on where the pendulum is. So if ANPP is winning and then they sue ANPP, they will become defender together with ANPP, and then they will become, in some state, they become defender together.
So basically, INEC is not defending its actions. Are not defending that. They are simply just sticking with what?
Do you know another thing the law says? That the burden of proof is carried by the petitioner. INEC that conducts the election doesn't have the burden of proof. What is the burden of proof? They said this election is not credible, it's flawed. You have the burden of proof to come and prove it, INEC, that the election I conducted was fair. No, they don't have it. The law says, the Electoral Act says, that it is the petitioner that has the burden of proof to prove that the election was not conducted according to that.
So
However, they have backing for that. You know, they say, oh, he who alleges must prove. But at the same time, if you're a lawyer, they will tell you that electoral cases are sui generis, that is on its class of its own.
perhaps if the National Assembly considers and passes the bill which the NBA is proposing for INEC to be sued directly, this would be helpful.
It will be. That is what I'm saying. Because as of today, INEC doesn't have any burden of proof.
Let me ask you a direct question as we look to the Electoral Act amendments, because the public hearing is just around the corner. Do you think that the Electoral Offences Commission would be a game changer?
It will, if it's not politicized. And that's what we're saying.
In what areas do you think it could possibly be politicized?
Appointment. The bill presently is still giving the power of appointment to the executive. Most of these executive, for instance, when you take the president and then you take the vice president, they are members of a political party. Then most of the ministers, the executive, most of them are the governor, all of them are political. I mean, they occupy a political position. So now, and my fear is, one way or the other, I hope this will not become another EFCC. You understand? Now, that is the challenge I am saying here. If you ask me, and we have made a proposal, they seem not to look into that place. Can we toe the line of South Africa? Can we toe the line of Mexico? They have what we call electoral courts. If you have an electoral court in this country, you don't need this ad hoc 180 days EPT. Let me cite an example. Do you know that anytime you have an election and the tribunal, general election, the tribunal sit for 180 days? Practically, both civil and criminal cases practically stopped in regular court because some of those judges have been transferred to panels. So what happened? That judiciary is also bearing the brunt. So why can't you have South Africa have electoral court? All electoral cases go there. In Nigeria, you have industrial courts, and nothing has happened. And have you noticed that election cases is one of the cases that we do every year in this country, both from the primary to election day to post-election. Don't forget, this by-election that we just had
We'll
now,
go to court.
some of them will still go to court. So you have that. And we have said, look, the electoral court can do pre-election and post-election cases. So over time, they will have built capacity. But do you know the challenge I'm having with this Electoral Offense Commission? I support it if that is the low-hanging fruit for now that we will have. But my fear is we will not be asking, people will not be jostling to be national commissioner on that Electoral Offense Commission. Who is going to be the chairman?
Who should appoint?
Who should appoint?
Who should appoint? If you say the executive shouldn't, who should appoint?
Let's have an independent body to appoint. Like we are talking about, the president should not also be appointing INEC chairman now, or the INEC leadership. That we should have an independent body. Justice Waste Committee recommend like about 3 solution to that. He talked about NJC, that NJC can appoint and then send to the National Assembly for whatever. Then we talk about, look, people can apply. And then it could be open. And then the committee screen them. So it has to be, people don't even know what we are talking about. The present chairman, his tenure is going to end November. If President Tinubu is going to contest in 2027 election, so the person that will man that election is going to be appointed by the same man that will run in the election. It is not perceived to be fair enough. And that is part of the winner take it all process we have in Nigeria. So I think that, look, we should have an independent body to appoint leadership of INEC. That is one. If you say they are truly independent, that is one. Number two, electoral, if you cannot have electoral courts, that look, you can go there. I just mentioned countries that have electoral court and things are moving on. So when things go to electoral court, civil and criminal cases are going on. Nothing affects them. And then things move on. They can also take care of electoral offenses because you don't need commission again as at that time.
Let's look at the bills for early voting and diaspora voting in a country where there's a huge trust deficit. Because I've heard a lot of people question, so if we vote 2 weeks ahead, where do we keep the votes? Do we trust where those votes would be? The people in diaspora, how will they vote? Most likely electronically. How do we trust that that data is safe? What do you think about early voting and diaspora voting? Because those bills are being proposed as we speak.
Early voting, yes. Diaspora voting, I think we should relax a bit. Let me start with the diaspora voting. Most times, when people talk about diaspora voting, they are talking about colleagues and relatives and citizens in Canada, in Germany, in probably in Europe, you know, in Russia, all of them. But they've forgotten that Togo is also diaspora. They're forgetting that Niger is diaspora. Cameroon here is I just mentioned these 3 countries. These are countries that you can stroll to from Nigeria. So, and these are countries that Nigerians are living in without no record. Document. You just stroll in there and come back and no document. So my fear is that by the time they will bring the votes, by the time they will bring the vote from Niger, it will be more than the total vote of Rivers State. We have to tread softly if we cannot get our data right. But any voting, you know, majority of our security agency don't vote. Doctors on duty.
We don't vote.
Media, observers like myself, you know, a whole lot of them. So early voting, we can try that. And we can start, and we are even ripe for that. Okay. And what can we do? You need a special seal that is being done in Ghana, is being done in the US, special seal. So these people's vote and the seal is there. And what they do in Ghana is that the moment they vote, all the party agents have the key. They have the passcode. So when they come, when they bring it on election day, everybody look at the code. Has it been tampered with? All of them, they agree. All the party agents, so in Nigeria we have 19. The 19 goes to the place before they start the general election. So which means the people that have voted, let's say on Monday, now they look at it, okay, the seal has not been touched then. And
this is easy because from what the chairman of the National House of Reps Electoral Committee said is that it would be for specific polling units, so not necessarily the polling units where I'm registered.
Exactly.
So it'll be easy to
and then you are able to look at it.
Okay.
So we can try that. But this diaspora voting, let's get our data right first. Don't forget, some Nigerians are surprised that we have Nigerians in Central African Republic recently.
But how about people who have this diaspora voting? You're telling me that you don't think that the international passport would be credible enough to pass as identification?
So let's now ask, where would they be identified to vote? Don't forget, in Nigeria, if America is doing diaspora voting, they go to their embassy, they go and vote. So are we going into our embassy? Don't forget, everything in Nigeria is political. Are we going to our embassy in those countries that the ambassador is an APC member or PDP member, chosen by the president? So when the results are coming, are they going to have that trust? I think we can take it step by step. We will get there. We will get there. I agree.
Hopefully we will get there. Just before we go, you've said so much about our elections. And one thing I do know is that international partners support you, support us, and support INEC to improve our electoral process. What do you think their perception is of Nigeria since 2015 till now, which you say with our elections have continued to deteriorate?
I think I can tell you categorically that none of them is happy. They are not happy because the progress has not been the progress has not worth the investment they have put into the. If you look at 2023 election, US alone pushing over $10 million into this country. We have not talked about EU. We have not talked about other countries, Canada, all of them, to support the process. INEC also got support. Media got support. Civil society like us got support. We couldn't deploy to say, okay, we want to see observers every nook and cranny. It's through some of this support. Then voter education. Then political parties also got support because some of them were trained. But what do we have? This is exactly what we have. That the progress has been undulating. So, and I think the fatigue is setting in. I can tell you categorically that the money coming into this country for democracy and governance is reducing every day.
Mr. Bukola Idowu, thank you so much for coming to speak with me on Political Paradigm, and we'll wait for that report on the by-elections, as you always do with elections.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's
Thank
hope
you.
that international partners don't pull out funding
Yes,
completely, because it would be a case of giving up on Nigeria.
Yes, yes.
And if we cannot get it right with the amount of funding we're getting, imagine when they pull out, everything goes back to zero.
We hope that Anambra governorship election November 8 will be a game changer.
Will be an improvement,
Will
right?
be an improvement,
But
then we see that.
All right, very well then. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have on Political Paradigm. I've been speaking with the Executive Director of Kimpact Development Initiative, Mr. Bukola Idowu. If you'd like to catch this episode and more, simply go to YouTube and search Political Paradigm, or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.